Well, I am here with Dr. Stephen Presley, and he is the director of our research doctoral program. Dr. Presley, you want to go ahead and introduce yourself?
Sure, Brian, thank you so much. Grateful for this opportunity to chat. I teach church history here, associate professor of church history, and am in the role of overseeing all our doctoral studies, research doctoral studies in particular. So just glad to be here. Grateful for this opportunity to chat. Thanks, Brian.
Awesome. Yeah, so we're here with Dr. Presley, and then Jared Mays is one of our admissions counselors here, and he works with doctoral students. So we have full firepower of we can answer any question that you may have about doctoral studies. So, all right, so we'll go ahead and get started. So, Dr. Presley, what is a doctor, or who is a doctoral degree for?
Yeah, it's a great question.
Who should be interested in it?
Yeah, it's a great question. We have, at least in my department, I oversee all research doctoral studies. So this is those who want to write a dissertation or make a contribution to the field. We have another department called the Doctor of Ministry department that a colleague of mine overseas. Those are those who are interested in acquiring skills that are ministry focused and more practically oriented. The research doctoral side are those who are interested in a terminal degree, the highest degree you can achieve, or related degrees. We also have a degree called the Doctorate in Education, and we have a Doctorate in Missiology that I oversee as well. So all of those degrees are research focused or research based. And at the end of it, because they're research focused and research based, you typically acquire the tools and the qualifications to teach in higher education. Now, not all our students go on to teach. A lot of them go into the pastorate or in various forms of ministry, but you acquire the skills of research and writing that are representative of that kind of degree of study in an area of specialization.
Great. So I'm assuming that we have a lot of pastors here in this group. How does a research Ph.D. how does that help like somebody that's going to pastor? I know a lot of our students do doctorate and are also pastoring and don't necessarily get into formal higher ed.
Yeah, it's a great question. And actually, if you look at the makeup, we did a study in 2019 of all the students in our program. Actually, about half of them, approaching half in our program, are currently engaged in pastoral ministry or ministry of some sort. So I like to say our program, I feel, represents the best of what is the pastor theologian kind of mentality. So when you take doctoral classes, it is for those who love ministry, who love the church, but are also want to do serious academic research and writing, yet at the same time are not divorced from the church, not divorced from thinking about the implications of what their research and writing for the church. And this would distinguish a little bit different from what we call a doctorate of ministry. At the end of your doctorate of ministry, everything you do is typically focused on your church, your particular area of ministry. And that's a great doctorate to gain deeper skills in ministry and in reading and writing in ministry. But the research doctoral degree is a focused, intensive study in an area of discipline, even while you're engaged in church, and often has implications broader than just your church context, or what you're writing has implications and engagement beyond just the your local area. But we have lots and lots of pastors in our program who are pastoring on Sunday and doing deep research and writing throughout the week. Yeah.
Yep, that's awesome. So, this is a group of online students. What are some like unique challenges that like a distance student has in, preparing for a doctoral degree and even just doing a doctoral degree from a distance?
Yeah. A couple things. We just finished a round of interviews and just finished going through that process. And these things are coming up as more students like yourself find themselves in kind of different educational situations. One of the main challenges is getting to know faculty, because you're not always on campus. You have to build those relationships remotely. And so we recognize you have to get letters of recommendation. You have to have faculty that know your academic research. So one challenge that you're going to have, and it's not one you can't overcome, but that is contacting faculty. I would encourage you to reach out to faculty right now while you're in their class. Just set up a time, even a short time, to get to know them, express your interest in doctoral work, even studying with them, or you can always contact our office. I have two staff members that work with me. Mary Beth is my assistant here in the RDS program. Zach Hedges is my assistant director. In addition to Jared, who is phenomenal and knows all things about doctoral studies. But you can call our office and we can help facilitate or get you connected with faculty who may be interested in the area in which you're writing or interested in the area you're looking to research in, and we can get you connected. So one of the main things is getting connected with faculty. The other thing is just resources. Because you're remote, access to academic resources takes on a whole new sort of dynamic. We have the best library staff in the world, and they're great about getting you resources. But sometimes, depending on where you live, you may have access to some excellent theological libraries wherever you live. And you can talk to our librarians about that. You can talk to the RDS office. For example, I'm from Dallas, Texas. And when I lived in Dallas, there's some great libraries in the Dallas area. Libraries at SMU, libraries at University of Dallas, libraries at DTS. Great theological resources where if you're in that area, you have other resources you can utilize. So sometimes it requires thinking a little bit differently about resources and access to resources. Those are two that stand out, Brian. Can you think of others?
No, I think that's great. One thing that, if you're an on-campus student, I think some people think like, oh, well, relationships kind of like magically happen. Whether you're an online student or an on-campus student, you have to be intentional about forming a relationship with faculty. It just doesn't happen magically. And so I know when, I was going through my MDiv here, I could theoretically just go to class, walk the halls, and like not form any relationships. I had to be intentional about like, hey, Dr. Pennington, do you want to go grab lunch? I have some questions that I want to ask you. Same with an online student, just emailing saying, hey, do you have 15, 20 minutes? We can set up a Zoom call. I have some specific questions to ask about, X topic. And I know working with faculty, like having specific questions is really helpful to kind of move that conversation forward rather than, just getting in there like, oh, just very general questions, but being specific about what you want to talk about is always helpful.
In my experience, I know the faculty can seem intimidating, but I've worked at Southern long enough to know that a lot of these people are godly people who would love to talk to you. And so don't be intimidated to reach out. I mean, just this morning, I spent 45 minutes on Zoom with one of my modular students who's a pastor in Alabama, working through a book review he's writing and working through a paper he's putting together for his seminar in the fall. Faculty want to work with you. They would love it. So don't hesitate to reach out.
Yeah, for sure. Yeah, our faculty, a lot of our faculty are pastors. I mean, they're involved in the church, the community. Like they're on faculty here, but they're very approachable and always want to get to know you. So don't think of like this like ivory tower that, they're just, don't want to talk to people, but faculty's great here. So, as far as like online students, like preparing, apart from kind of the engagement with faculty, what are some other things that students can do, whether they're, probably on campus or online, but like prepare academically to, for that like entrance exam, but also like just prepare themselves, for more rigorous study of a PhD program?
Yeah, it's a great question. I would begin whatever area of study you're thinking about doing. I would begin reading generally in that area. If you can take any elective courses in that area, I would encourage you to take elective courses, even online. Right now I teach church history, patristics. I'm offering early Christian spirituality online. I have a great group in there. In some of our live syncs, we've talked about, just parenthetically, about doctoral study in patristics or in church history. So begin reading generally in your area. It'll also help you on your entrance exams. You'll have to read 3 books or a few books in that area. If you're coming for biblical studies, of course, work on your languages and work on sharpening those languages. So read generally in your field. So that's the academic side. There's also I think the personal side or the spiritual side, and just the tools. There's lots of books out there. In fact, I'm teaching, beginning to teach this fall. I taught it this spring, graduate research seminar, which just works on research and writing, time management, those kinds of things. For example, the books by Cal Newport, everything Cal Newport wrote, from Deep Work to his first So Good They Can't Ignore You, to his recent work that he wrote on technology. Brian has Deep Work there. Cal Newport is great for just time management. How do I approach? Because you'll find the doctoral program is as much about managing your time and managing those things as it is about the intellectual capabilities to accomplish. And so on the academic side, read broadly in your field. If you want to know what to read, contact a faculty member, set up an interview. What should I begin generally? And then personally, spiritually, of course, talk with your family, your spouse, and do reading like something like a Cal Newport. Helps you start to organize your time and get in the mode of research and writing on a regular basis.
Yeah, for sure. Anyway, one thing I would add is, look at the electives that are being offered. So like Dr. Presley's teaching early Christian spirituality. So, if you're interested in, something in church history, look for that elective and take advantage of those electives as you're going. I will say, our online program has quite a few electives, actually probably more electives offered online than we actually do have on campus. So there's more opportunities that we've developed, some of these courses that allow you to kind of get a taste. And it's also a good spot, if you think you're interested in maybe church history, taking an early Christian spirituality class with Dr. Presley. If you find out like, okay, maybe that's not my gig, you can take, elective in biblical studies or something like that and kind of get a feel before you jump into what you think you want to do for a PhD.
I think they're all going to want to do a PhD in early Christian history.
Yes,
everyone wants to do that. That is
absolutely. Yeah. Yes. So, what is the difference between like the workload, the research, kind of the mindset between like a master's level, Master of Divinity, and a PhD?
Yeah, it is. By the time you get to the doctoral level, most of the time you're at the level. The master's degree is for mastering a body of knowledge, about an area of study, and so you graduate with your MDiv, and even your THM takes things up a notch, and you master an area of study, and at the THM level, you get a greater degree of knowledge in an area of specialization. At the doctoral level, you're making a contribution, and so this is the important distinction. And at this point, you now become a voice within a chorus of voices writing in a particular area. And because of that, you're going to be reading. Typically, our seminars have about let's say 8 books in a seminar. You're reading about a book a week, and you're gathering in seminars to discuss that book. And so the seminar follows a pretty standard format of the professor may do some lecturing, but oftentimes there's discussion over a particular book, and that culminates in about 8 books in a general topic. And then you write a major paper, typically, a 20-page or so paper for that class, 25-page, somewhere along those lines. And then you present that work to the class or to the professor. And so that's the normative. It is an additional step above obviously a THM level course, a master's level course. And it's typically discussion based, because at this, like I said, you're walking into a seminar and you're surrounded by those who are writing in the area in which you're studying, and you are now a voice dialoguing with those. Remember, I did my doctoral work overseas, and we had a seminar room there where we did all our study. It looks like it was straight out of Hogwarts, a big oval table. And when I'd walk in there, the faculty and the students were gathered around it, and we would have conversation back and forth. And this is what you're doing, if you think about it intellectually. You're now walking into a field where you're getting to know the major figures, and you're now dialoguing with them at the table with them. So about a book a week or so for about 8 weeks. Then you write a major paper and you present that paper for the seminar, and the seminar discusses it.
Yeah.
Anything you'd like to add?
No, I think that's yeah, the discussion base and like contributing, like kind of being part of that table, being part of that discussion. It was, you know, when I started my doctoral work, was like very much the biggest difference and adjustment. You know, rather than, you know, kind of passively like learning a topic, I was expected to contribute my thoughts to that and be confident in that.
Yeah.
So you mentioned you did your PhD over in Europe. What's the difference between like a European PhD and a PhD here at Southern or United States more broadly?
Yeah, they both have their strengths and weaknesses. Some of you may be thinking about going overseas to the UK or to Europe. Some of the major differences in the UK or in Europe broadly, they typically don't have coursework at that doctoral level. And so you typically jump in writing your dissertation immediately. Some strengths to that is the way I describe it to a lot of students who ask some of these distinctions is I think the British degree teaches you to be a great researcher. The American system teaches you to be a great teacher. And these are just two strengths that each of them have. On the British system, because you never take coursework, your whole life is revolved around one narrow area. And I use this illustration. When I did my British degree, I studied 2nd century Christianity. So I knew a lot about 2nd century. But when we got into the 3rd century, things got a little hazy. The 4th century, a little more hazy. 5th, by the time we got to the 6th or 7th, I'm not even sure where I am anymore, right?
Do
So
you
my
even know what the Reformation is?
What's the Reformation?
Know what the Reformation? Yeah.
There was a Reformation?
Right.
What? Yeah. So you know an area, and I can remember the first time I walked into a church history 1 class, and I got about 2 lectures on my area of study, and then I had to start reading broadly to get to know the entirety of church history. Whereas in the American system, you take coursework that gives you a much broader depth in a area. So you'll take courses, you'll be studying, let's say in church history, you'll be studying the early church, but you'll get to know every era. Or if you're in New Testament, you may focus on the Gospels, but you'll get to know all the books of the New Testament so that when you go to teach, you have a base knowledge. Now, the weakness on the American side, of course, is you don't start writing your dissertation typically until you pass comps, although we have something called progressive perspective development, which helps you to think about, it's kind of a hybrid between a British and American model that helps you think about your dissertation along the way. Those are a set of courses we have in our program. Those are some of the strengths. Obviously, there's other differences, cost differences, accessibility differences, and I could talk more about some of those details if someone wanted to get more specific.
Yeah, no, that's helpful. So I mean, this group is all distance students. So what are options for like distance students for PhD programs here? What does that look like?
Yeah, it's a good question. We have currently ATS. If your institution is accredited through ATS, there are no online PhDs. There may be online PhDs in theology out there, but those who are accredited through ATS do not have the opportunity to offer an online PhD right now. So our 2 delivery modes are, of course, residential, the traditional mode. You move here to Louisville, but the more for a lot of our online students, what is more attractive is our modular PhD program. We have many different modular offerings. You can get those on our website. You have lots of offerings in various areas of study. The Doctor of Missiology is now offered fully online. It is not a PhD degree, but it is a Doctor of Missiology, which is a hybrid between a research-based focus exclusively on missions. So if you're interested in missions, that is a research degree. It is different than the PhD, but it's still a research-based degree, still considered a terminal degree within missions, within missiology, and that is offered fully online. The modular programs, you come to campus 4 times, twice in December, twice in May, and for 2 weeks, and you take 1 class each week. So you come to campus 4 times, you can do your comprehensive exams, and then you can you can do your write your dissertation remotely in conversation with your professor. So the modular degree, I could go on and on. Like I said, the student I was just online this morning, just on Zoom this morning, is one of my modular students. He's a pastor in Alabama. He's wonderful. He's writing book reviews. He's writing papers. We're meeting on Zoom throughout the semester. When he's here in December, his family typically comes with him. We go to dinner, we go to coffees, we talk when he's on campus here. And I call the modular weeks theological summer camp, because it is awesome. Without the Thursday night cry nights and the the campfires. There may be campfires, I don't know, but it is fantastic. You get to know like a cohort, you become friends, and it is you go through your 2 years of coursework with a group of like-minded brothers and sisters in Christ who are interested in the study of the things of God. So
awesome. What do like colloquiums look like for, or maybe just like talk about what a colloquium is and how does that look like for the modular PhD?
Yeah, that's a good question. If you're a residential student, a colloquium is a gathering of students researching generally in each area or discipline. So we have a church history colloquium, which includes those who study early church, Reformation, American church history, whatever. New Testament has a colloquium where whether you're studying the Gospels or Paul or the latter New Testament, or whatever, Old Testament too. That colloquium is where you read generally in your area. And all of those colloquium are tailored toward your comprehensive exams. So the colloquia are helping you get ready for your comprehensive exams along the way. If you're a modular student, your seminars are 4 days. So you come and you take a seminar Monday through Thursday, which is 32 contact hours, 32 hours in the classroom for those 4 days. On Friday is your colloquium. All day on Friday. So it'll be a separate class taught by a separate faculty member on Friday. And that's how you'll have a reading. It is typically 1 or 2, sometimes 3 books for that one Friday seminar, and you discuss those. And those books, again, are getting you ready for your comprehensive exams at the end of your coursework.
Great. So if a student is thinking through, like, let's say they're like, I want to be teaching, I want to do more research, but they're not sure on like the concentration. Like, they have multiple interests in what they want to do. How would you suggest like kind of narrowing that down as maybe they're like beginning the process of thinking about further study?
Yeah, it's a great question. As you think ahead about your study, of course, the best thing you can do is take a variety of online electives, just as Brian said. Take what's offered, see what. Sometimes it's as important the area you study is the faculty you study with, the people who you study under. And so look at some areas, maybe get to know some faculty in that area. And you can also, the THM is another option. If you don't quite know what you want to study, the THM is a degree between the MDiv and the PhD. If you don't know if you want to jump into PhD, and we just completely revamped our THM to include, you can do it fully online now, or you can do it modularly, but those THM options are available to you and allows you to take more electives for choosing your area of study. But yeah, when you come in, that's the other difference between like the British system. When you apply in a British system, you apply to study a topic. So typically you have to be pretty narrow when you're thinking about your British degree. In America, you can say, I want to do New Testament, or I want to do church history. I think I want to do Gospels, but, and it probably needs to start to narrow it down to, let's say, Gospels, but you don't need to say, I want to research Matthew chapter 1. And that you have that so narrow that you at the front end of your studies.
How does like your MDiv like concentration play a part in like what you end up doing PhD wise?
When you get into your PhD entrance interviews, one of the questions the faculty will sort of examine is what areas of study have you done in this area already? And some of that comes down to sort of like preparation. So if you're doing New Testament, they may want to see some Greek classes or some exegetical studies within particular areas, or theology. If you're thinking about systematic theology, some kind of electives. So those, and the THM allows you to actually concentrate generally in our THM in theological studies or in Old Testament or in biblical studies. So yeah, one of the questions the faculty will look to as they look over the entirety of your application is seeing how you have prepared through your master's coursework for what you're doing in your PhD program.
Good. So in terms of, doing a PhD is a lot of writing. What are some steps, master's level students can take to kind of better their writing to prepare for a higher level of writing?
That's great. And I talk about this in a lot more detail in GRS at the beginning of your PhD program. But writing is a skill that you cultivate. There's several good books on writing, stylish academic writing by Helen Sword. Anything by Helen Sword is great. There's also a nice book that I've used at GRS called Write No Matter What. There's several books on academic writing. The theme of a lot of these books are things like write every day, cultivate the habits of writing constantly. I know I know you're not like me, but when I was in my undergrad, I would wait till the last minute to the night before and drink 10 gallons of coffee and a Red Bull and then try to somehow write the paper all night long and get to the morning. And while that might have worked in my undergrad, you can't write your dissertation the night before. This is something that is going to take a process. And there's so many good books on writing. I think starting with something like a Helen Sword, Air, Light, Time, Space, Write No Matter What, these kinds of books that just teach you that writing is about a journey. It is about cultivating a skill. Again, we'll talk about some of these things in GRS. They Say, I Say is a classic book that's used in a lot of educational circles. It just teaches you how to write a thesis, how to say, and how to construct an argument in a paper and those kinds of things. So I would think about, as I mentioned earlier, your intellectual journey. And then as you're doing a PhD, you're cultivating the skills, or what Cal Newport calls the craftsman mindset, where you're developing the craft of writing, which requires you to study that craft. So some of those books, those Sword books, or other books that are on the topic of writing would help you in those kinds of developments.
Awesome. Are there any like language requirements? So, Greek and Hebrew, is one thing, but then like German or Latin or French or any other thing, is there anything you have to do beforehand before preparing?
No, not the Greek and Hebrew are separate, but when you get into the PhD program, when you come and join us, when you join the journey of our doctoral program, along the way, you have to acquire a translation level or a translation level of at least 2 languages. Currently, we just finished recording language classes for French and Latin, French with Dr. Plummer, Latin with Dr. Haken. We're offering those on a regular basis for all our students, including modular. You can take those wherever you are. They're offered during the semester, and Dr. Plummer and Dr. Haken will be available for live syncs at various times. We're in the process of recording a logic course, process of trying to secure a German course. So your languages will be acquired along the way. You have to complete 2 language requirements prior to the end of your coursework. So you'll typically pick those up. So for example, this fall, Dr. Plummer is offering his French course online. And then next summer, we're going to have him offer it during the summer to allow students to get that language covered over the summer.
Awesome. In terms of like, the admissions process, does like practical or vocational experience have a play in getting into a research doctoral program?
I think on the personal level, I think it does. I think it helps. It's a great question. Because this program recognizes And, academic study, we recognize that is holistic. It is not, we are not a bunch of eggheads sitting around talking about ideas. We have not enrolled in, I was going to say Plato's Academy, but Plato might be a little holistic as well. But we're not eggheads in ivory towers sitting around talking about ideas. We recognize that ideas influence the way we live. And yeah, this is, in our doctoral program, we spend as much time we spend a lot of time thinking about the implication of the studies that we do. As I mentioned, half of our program includes pastors. And so because of that, they're doing serious academic work, yet because of their context, they're engaged with those ideas as they manifest themselves within, their church context. And it demonstrates, a well-rounded person, someone who recognizes that that academic study is not just left in the academy, that there are implications. It reminds me, I spend all my time reading the early dead guys like Augustine and Irenaeus, and they didn't think in this bifurcated way. They thought they were pastors working in ministry, thinking deeply about doctrine, about theology, about scripture. And in some ways, I think that is a helpful vision for the way our doctoral program is not divorced from the church. So, yeah.
Sure. That's helpful. All right, give you an opportunity to brag a little bit, but what makes Southern's PhD program so great? Like, what makes it great?
Yeah.
What makes it unique? Like, why should students continue on here?
Yeah, there's three things I point out constantly. One is a confessional context, and I recognize that not every doctoral program that you may be interested in is confessional. And there's something good, I think healthy, about doing research within the confession of faith. We have some shared assumptions. We have some shared doctrine. We're not afraid to ask hard questions or serious questions. We're not afraid to think deeply. We're not afraid to engage ideas. But we have a confession. We have a firm commitment. Everyone at this institution signs the Baptist Faith and Message, signs the Abstract of Principles. Every faculty member does their scholarship within the boundaries of those confessional commitments. The quality of our education is number two. I truly believe we are one of the best, if not the best, PhD program within evangelicalism or within a confessional context. And you're going to find faculty that are engaged at all levels of the academy. You're going to find faculty that are writing the books, and the quality of our doctoral program speaks for itself in terms of the kind of faculty you're studying under. And then the third is the community. I wish I could bring to you some of our modular students. I talk to them almost on a daily basis, at least a weekly basis. The modular program, even the week you're on campus, they form friendships and relationships that last throughout the course of their study. They study together through Zoom during the semester. They form bonds that will carry out through the rest of their ministry. Those three things distinguish it. And I'll say one other thing, and I know Jared can talk about this. In 2019, we did a study of our program. We found that 92% were satisfied with their doctoral program after they graduated. 93% said they would choose Southern all over again if they had to come back. And one stat we also like to say is that if you look right now across all ATS accredited institutions, those institutions accredited by the Association of Theological Schools, there are only two schools that have more PhDs teaching in their institutions. That is Catholic U and Princeton. Southern is ranked third, which tells you academic institutions across this country recognize the Southern Seminary PhD for what it is, a serious, confessionally committed, and academically engaged group of men and women studying to the glory of God. I could go on. I'll stop.
I think that's great. So I want to turn it to Jared for a second. Jared, would you want to just walk through like what does like kind of the admissions process look like, and just like kind of generically like how you pay for a PhD here at Southern? Like,
be happy. Yeah, sure. I'd be happy to talk about that. So in terms of you're thinking about a PhD here at Southern, and you got to think, okay, wow, this is amazing. Third highest job placement. This is a great place. Okay, you're sold. You want to apply. What does that look like practically? Southern's PhD program has 2 intakes per year, a fall and a spring. The next intake that we're looking at right now would be for the spring of 2023, with an application deadline of August. So you'd be looking at applying this summer and then doing entrance exams and interviews and things like that this fall, and then starting in the spring. So it's a little bit different than a master's program, right? Where you can kind of wait quite a bit before deciding to apply and things like that. If you're interested in a PhD, if you are really a year or less out from when you would start, so right at spring of 2022, and we're looking at talking to people who are starting in spring of 2023, right? So you can think whenever you're a year out from when you'd like to start, that's when you want to start talking with us here in admissions, talking with Dr. Presley, talking to us about applying and things like that. In terms of what the application process looks like, it's kind of this multi-tiered thing, right? So we help you here in admissions for a bit, and then we hand you over to Dr. Presley, and then they help you, and then they're the ones who kind of give the final decision. So there's an academic paper that you'll submit with your application. There is 3 recommendations. So you'll have a pastoral recommendation and then 2 academic recommendations. I know we were talking a little bit about what that looks like as an online student. So again, as you're thinking through things, just think, okay, that's part of the application process. I'm going to have to provide those. And then you'll, excuse me, you'll also have the GRE that you'll take. The GRE is a standardized test. Many schools require the GRE. I'm sure you're very familiar. The GRE can be done at certain centers, universities, things like that. But these days, they actually are offering it fully online as well. So it's pretty easy to be able to take the GRE. And once we kind of collate all those things, then we just make sure that you kind of tick all the boxes and that you meet the requirements. We'll then send you over to research doctoral studies, and then they will kind of go phase 2. They'll review your application, read through your paper, and then invite you to entrance exams and interviews. You'll have those entrance exams and interviews, which we just had last week, and then you'll go on from there with an admissions decision. Let's say now we're tracking along. You get your admissions decision. You're coming here to Southern. You've accepted, your offer. Well, then you have to think about, what does this look like financially? I see that somebody asked a question there. So Southern's doctoral programs, you all are master's students, so you understand what it's like to go on MySBTS and pay and things like that. Well, our doctoral programs are just a program cost. They're not going to be per credit hour like you're used to paying in your master's programs, where some semesters it might be this, some semesters it might be that, because of the different credit hours that you're taking. At the doctoral level, it's just a fixed cost. So for the PhD at the Southern Baptist tuition rate, it's $26,606. That's just the cost for the PhD. That's not yearly. That's not any, that's just the PhD cost. And then the way that comes out automatically, so the way that it's automatically billed is on a 4-year kind of system. And so you'd pay a $1,000 deposit up front, and then just pay monthly payments for the 48 months that you're in the program. So that would be $533 per month at the SBC rate. Another word on that, whatever your cost is, because it's just this whole program cost, whatever your cost is for the program when you start, that is the cost of your program. So I'm sure a lot of you guys have experienced, maybe you've been in, an MDiv student for a couple years, and your tuition might change a little bit over time. That's not going to be the case for you as a doctoral student. Whatever it is when you start, that is, you're locked in to that rate. So those are just some of the practical things to consider, and I'm happy to answer any more questions if anybody has anything, just you can send me an email or something like that.
Perfect. Thanks, Jared. That was really helpful. Dr. Presley, do you have any final words as we kind of close up here? You're muted.
Unmute. All right. Just want to say thank you for joining us. I do hope to see you all come through or see your applications come through. If there's anything else my office can do, any questions, again, I have 2 great employees here in the RDS office. I know Jared in admissions, they are fantastic. They can help you with any questions in the process of applying. If we need to get you connected with a faculty member or you just have more detailed questions, don't hesitate to reach out. I'm happy to chat with any prospective student or anyone interested in doctoral studies. All right. Thanks, Brian.
Awesome. Thanks, Dr. Presley. Thanks, Jared. Thanks, everyone, and hope you guys have a great rest of the day.